You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz. And today is today Q&A Friday, Michael? Have I been away so long that have we done away with the Q&A?
We do. No, we can do Q&A, but just in case there's no Qs, I've brought A's anyway in the terms of topics to discuss.
Very good. So, Michael, you're also the host of various and sundry shows.
I am. Does this mean you haven't read the articles? That's all I really want to know.
I have read the articles. The only article I didn't read, and you know I'm not going to read it because I've read so many.
Jacobin.
Of course I'm not going to read Jacobin.
All right. Okay. So that's fine. Yes, I'm the host of many other shows, of course. Persephone and I are going to be on today at 2:30 every day. Ethics. That is going to be a great discussion. We're going to be tackling the nature of the grift machine is what we're going to be doing. Of course, Mark and I on Saturday will be discussing envy on the Self-Made Soul podcast at noon Eastern time. I will be leaving early because I have an appointment for screwing. And by that, I mean my taxes are getting done. So that's what we got going on. I'll have some good stuff coming up on the Rational Egoist. I'm going to do an episode. I plan on doing it anyways on individual rights. Jenna Kleem gives us $5. Thank you so much.
Jenna.
And that is a good reminder that we appreciate the super chats and super stickers. And without further ado, Senor Pellegrino, let's get at it. Unless you got something you want to say. Oh, we're on Twitch. Please, everybody, remember to go to Twitch. I haven't done it yet. Persephone is going to guide me through this at the end of this episode. Well, we're going to handle it.
Well, not to do party business here on air, since this show is not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party, but I might as well do it here, Michael, just because I'm going to forget.
What does that mean then? I don't understand. Not to do it here, but I'm going to do it here.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to forget otherwise. You know me. I'm going to pull a Pellegrino and I'm going to forget. But you know, we have a brainstorming meeting tonight, and we have to have gone through some of the bylaws, which Ariana sent us. So we have to go over review the bylaws, because this is something we're going to have to deal with at the convention, and we have to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and all that stuff.
So basically, you're telling me that this is a meeting I have to attend.
This is a meeting you have to attend, probably, and you have to read the 4 pages.
I've already done that. So basically, this is going to be a very exciting Friday night, is what you're telling me.
Yes, man. It's a very exciting
time.
Hey, I might turn you on to a little program.
You're not going to turn me on, I promise.
I know you were going to do that. There's a show on Netflix called Something Bad Is Going to Happen. I'm 2 episodes in, and I got to tell you, this is a very well acted and extremely well directed show that had me jumping out of my skin on more than one occasion. So check this show out. It's something I'm going to recommend to the Horror Roundtable. People who are here in the chat, who are also members of the Inner Circle, who are also members of our little horror group. Please start watching the show. It's great.
So first you recommend. Well, no. We're not, because you recommend that I watch this great show. But no, not first. First, you tell me that my Friday night is locked up discussing bylaws, and then you tell me about the wonderful show I could be watching otherwise. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Yeah, well,
anything else you want to tell me about?
You can watch it after the meeting. The meeting won't take longer than an hour. It won't take longer than an hour, because we're just going to discuss the bylaws.
Yes, but because everybody else is not on the East Coast, what starts at 5:30 for you doesn't start till 8:30 for me, which means by 9:30 I'm cooked. Okay, but let's get to the articles. Let's start with Sheldon Richman's article, huh? You go.
I had to repost that, Michael, because that was an excellent article, and I hope are you reposting it here? Are you doing something?
I posted it on Facebook.
I would like to actually go through it in a little bit of detail, like read from the article, because I think it's fantastic.
It was. I actually sent Sheldon an email this morning telling him how wonderful the article was. This is one of those guys that I read for years in prison, his articles, and then got out and have now a friendship with him. Really nice guy.
Only in America, my friend. Yeah. Right. So this article is entitled TGIF: Capitalism and Self-Interest, the life-serving connection. It really strikes at the heart of the matter, Michael, that you and I constantly talk about. But I'd like to just sort of read the article straight out because I think it's so good that it merits that. Now, here it starts a little anecdotally. It took me a while to see it, but Ayn Rand had it right when she said that the suspicion of, if not hostility to the free market economy, capitalism, flows from a suspicion of the pursuit of profit, that is, self-interest. Despite the blinding fact that the Declaration of Independence lists the pursuit of happiness as among man's inalienable rights, a dominant, however conflicting cultural theme is that the pursuit of self-interest, egoism, is at best morally tainted and deserving of critical scrutiny. Michael, that is an out-of-the-park statement.
It freaking rocks. I actually just right now, while we're on air, got an email from Sheldon, and I'm getting him back and telling him to tune in because we're talking about it. But yes, that was a absolutely phenomenal statement. It's a great article.
It is. It really puts it into moral perspective here for everybody, why they sort of intuitively dislike capitalism, intuitively go towards socialism. And he puts it in moral terms that I think really will set the stage for making everyone capable of defeating the old ethical system that I think everyone circles the wagons around against capitalism. Michael, I want to read the next paragraph, see what you think.
Okay, first I want to say something. So Sheldon is an old school libertarian. He's been in the libertarian movement for decades. He's actually an anarcho-capitalist. He and I had a discussion/debate on that subject. And to me, this is such a great article. And there's so many people that are identified as objectivists who will dismiss it. Well, he's a libertarian. I can't do that. And at the same time, there's many libertarians who will dismiss the article because it's pro Ayn Rand. To me, this is just ridiculous, right? If somebody has good views on a topic, I can take that in and embrace it. This is a very good pro-capitalist argument, right? Written by a guy who, by the way, is very nice guy, very good guy. I have disagreements politically with him. Who gives a shit? Right? Like, it's still a great article. I just wanted to toss that out there.
It is. And so this conflict that I mentioned above would explain why many Americans seem to dislike relatively wealthy people. Now, guys, you've heard this. We live in an age of envy. The wealthy are considered evil. By world and historical standards, nearly everyone's wealthy in America, which is true, which is something, Michael, people don't recognize. Like any even lower middle class person is wealthy by world standards. So they're actually in the top quintile of earners in the world, and yet they hate the wealthy. We libertarians like to think that this animosity is confined to those who make their fortunes off taxpayers, right? We'd like to think that, politicians like Nancy Pelosi become worth millions because they're insider trading and they're making laws that privilege them, and they're exempting themselves from laws that would otherwise hold them accountable. And they're making money not by producing something, but by being on the inside of a regulatory market. Those are called parasites, folks. I wish it were so, but I'm afraid that people who give billionaires the evil eye do not care whether someone's wealth was a return on production or on political connections. That is coercion. Many would no doubt endorse a line supposedly written by Balzac. This line just slays me. Behind every great fortune, there is a crime. Michael, when I watch television, this is almost exclusively the ethic that animates almost every plot. It's like the rich people are despicable, twisted. Look, the horror movie, I'm just forgetting the name. It's not Now You See Me.
Okay, but let me tell you, as a kid, I used to watch soap operas, right, with my mother or with my grandmother, and I watched All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital. So on All My Children, the bad guys were Palmer Cortland and Sky Chandler. On One Life to Live, those were the rich guys. On One Life to Live, Asa Buchanan was the rich guy, the evil guy. The Lords were rich and they were evil. And then on General Hospital, it was Edward Quartermain was the rich guy and he was the bad guy. So this is like a common thing. People love to sort of hate the rich. It's despicable. It's disgusting. But you make a good point, Mark, because like if I go and I compare myself to, you rich people, I could say, oh, look, I'm not rich. But if I compare my quality of living to most of the people in the world, my quality of life is great. They think I'm rich. So should those people be leveling me?
Indeed. I mean, this is a conflict that those people don't want to resolve. Yes, Captain Chandler, I was thinking of Ready or Not. I just want to say another way. Ready or Not has that same plot line, Michael, where this poor lass gets brought into this rich family to marry them, but the rich family happens to be a satanic cult that has become wealthy because they've, of course, married themselves to Lucifer himself, and they have to sacrifice somebody to this deity of theirs in order to maintain wealth and to sustain their lives. Otherwise, they die. But I mean, that's a more ham-handed assault on that same thematic element where if you're rich, you're bad. If you're rich, you got there by stepping on somebody's neck. You didn't get there by producing something and making other people happy. You got there because you're a bad person. And that's pretty much what animates the tax the rich, no billionaires should exist movement that's predominantly on the left, but also seeping into the right, Michael, with the Tucker Carlson of the world. God. All these populists
and Donald Trump
Trump himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to that stuff in a minute. So when I was driving yesterday, I was listening to the radio. When I drive, I sometimes put on Connecticut Talk Radio, and then it was on the news. They have breaks every bottom and top of the hour. They have news breaks, and they were talking about how I think the Connecticut Attorney General wants to make sure that gas stations aren't price gouging. They want to make sure that they're not taking advantage of the situation. Now, implicit in this, of course, is that you have a right to gasoline at a given price. And that person has, they better not be making too much profit off of this. Even though, of course, it's their money, it's their time, it's their risk in going into this business, where I was setting up a gas station in this area, given it's a very competitive, it's a volatile industry. But so what? You have a right to it. And our Attorney General Tong is going to make sure that they're not ripping you off. And how does he determine whether they're ripping you off? Well, he just sees it and knows it because there's no standard that says they're charging too much. It is. It's just ridiculous. It's envy. It's hatred of the rich.
And it also separates. Look, in the cases of in the case of price gouging, which is a convenient term for politicians to use to control markets, it separates the prices from what they're intended, Michael, to represent, which is supply and demand. The price represents something, folks. It's information. And, a rising price tells entrepreneurs that there's a potential need to be filled there. I'll give you a perfect example, Michael. During COVID, the price was not allowed to rise for toilet paper.
Yeah,
so since the price was not allowed to rise relative to demand, people hoarded toilet paper. And we experienced shortages. So that meant some people got 10, rolls of toilet paper while others got none. How do you even out that supply? How do you make it, I think, it truly just? By raising the price. And then people start economizing, Michael. They start going, well, how much do I need this product relative to this product? And they will buy less of it, which leaves more for you. If you want shortages, if you want, some people to get a lot and you to have none, endorse a thing like price controls and claim that rising prices in times of emergency where there's supply chain problems are price gouging instead of actually reflecting the scarcity relative to the demand.
Nice. All right. So let's continue.
So the pursuit of self-interest or the good life was once embraced more enthusiastically than it is today. In ancient Greece, philosophers linked morality to happiness in this world. Things went downhill when the West headed into the religion-dominated Middle Ages. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith lamented that theology had severed the ancient link between ethics and happiness. Perhaps he, along with key American founders, sensed that it is the contingency of life that accounts for the phenomenon of value in the first place. I love that. That is a great formulation from Rand's concept of values. It's amazing. Rand's central ethical point, as he puts the punctuation on there. With the age of reason and the Enlightenment, the atmosphere must have improved, but individuals were far from culturally free to pursue their happiness without guilt, because morality had been contaminated with allegedly divine commandments, supposedly intuited duties, otherwise known as categorical imperatives from Kant, and admonitions about the need for self-sacrifice. Secular thinkers have been all too eager to keep religion's ethical teachings, even if they dumped faith in a deity. This is still true today. Atheists, especially the so-called new atheists, hasten to assure their audiences that while they have given up the ghost, they have not lost faith in ecclesiastical self-sacrificial moral precepts. For example, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, of course, now recently converted to Christianity. Richard Dawson, famous atheist who endorses altruist ethics. And
Mark, hold on. Not Richard Dawson.
Dawkins, sorry. Richard Dawkins. Yes, thank you. Richard Dawson was a great host for Family Feud and an actor who probably did Family Feud. I don't think he had a sober moment in Family Feud.
No, he did a lot of kissing. I know that.
He did a lot of kissing, which wouldn't go far today. Of course, self-interest couldn't be rejected altogether. How could it be? Attempting to live by a consistent code of self-sacrifice would demoralize society, undermine civility, and sabotage the production of wealth, which is exactly what we see today, Michael. So some watered-down egoism had to be tolerated, but always with more than a dash of guilt that could be activated by charges of greed and selfishness, which is exactly what the parasitic political class does in order to keep this horrible system going. Note how the most successful producers are urged to, quote, give something back to society, as though producing amazing, life-improving, and inexpensive products counted for nothing. I hate that concept, Michael. Give back.
Oh,
it just
God,
kills.
it's so annoying. But how many rich people do you see say that? I have to give back. Give back to the community.
Yes. How many rich people feel guilty about being rich? Yeah. And even rich people who got there by virtue of having a superior worth ethic and high energy and deep intelligence with respect to the field that they're in. They feel like they have to engage in some kind of social project in order for them to make up for making a lot of money. Nothing wrong with making money, folks, provided you do it by producing value that other people want. It's a beautiful thing. You're making the world a better place. You're making your life a wonderful thing, because it's so much better to be affluent than it is the other thing. Americans should realize that, Michael, since pretty much every American is comparatively wealthy.
Yes.
Look, no one bothers to explain why rational self-interest, the only authentic kind, we're reasoning beings, would have anything to do with harming other people. In many ways, human relationships are constitutive of the good life. We're poorer without them. The palpable harmony of basic interests is of personal selfish value to everyone. This is something, Michael, I don't understand why nobody gets. In popular culture, that is. Why is it that nobody gets? Everybody thinks your self-interest must be in conflict with your neighbor's self-interest. There's no other way of looking at the world.
I love this from Mr. Deagle. He said Seinfeld in an interview said that he has nothing to give back because he took nothing. He earned everything he has. And the comments are full of people calling him a greedy Jew. Of course they are.
Can I just tell you something? First of all, he produced that show. He executive produced that show. That means that show was on for like 10 seasons, right? 10 years, basically?
9, I think. 9.
Okay. So that means
10,
for 9 seasons, this guy got no sleep. If you're an executive producer of a show, you're show running, you're essentially responsible for all the creative elements of it, not just acting. You're like an owner of a business. So you go home, the clock doesn't stop. You don't punch out. You're constantly working. You're constantly working. So what does that mean to me, Michael? He produced a hit TV show. It was like the number one show for many, many years. That's not easy to do. It's a great deal of work. I'd say he probably put in 100 hours of work a week to do that. The man deserves every cent that he earned. You know what? He gave you and anybody who watched the show a great deal of joy, an hour of escape from, from whatever crap you might be experiencing in life. You got to immerse yourself in Seinfeld and actually have a release, some joy, a little happiness, Michael. I'll take that. Thank you, Jerry Seinfeld, for not feeling guilty about being rich. You deserve it. Further, not only has self-sacrifice never been justified as a virtue, but it is, strictly speaking, impossible. Wouldn't it be self-regarding and therefore wrong to accept sacrifices from others? Sacrifice is not to be confused with goodwill and generosity under appropriate circumstances. Our moralizers make a habit of conflating the two. So true, and people just follow along on the assumption sacrifice is good and self-interest is bad. The result is an incoherent moral stew. I just love that formulation. No wonder it fails to guide as a guide to conduct. However, it is effective in instilling guilt and preparing people for selfless duty, which is always appealing to would-be rulers. That is great. I love that thought, Michael. If people just understood that our parasitic political class uses these moral terms to paralyze us with guilt so that they can then pull one over on us, this is how the grift continues, man.
Yes. We might have to ban Mr. Deagle from this show because he says he doesn't like the show Seinfeld. And that is like, that's a test.
Hey, look, you have to ban me. I didn't watch the show much, but every time I did watch it, I thought it was funny. Besides the point, it still doesn't.
What did you just say?
And I never watched the show. I watched maybe one or two episodes. I thought it was funny, but I didn't watch it. I didn't pursue it as a habit. But still,
you should.
I can still recognize the tremendous achievement of this guy.
Now, Michael, here's what you have to understand. But wait a second. First of all, you have to understand. If you watch Seinfeld, there is very little that can ever happen in your daily experience that you cannot relate to a Seinfeld episode.
Cool.
It will give you so many references to use. It'll greatly enrich your life and your ability to be a host. But let's get back to Sheldon's article. I digress.
So, well, if egoism, the conviction that the purpose of life is the achievement of happiness, I just want that to resonate with everybody. I'm sure we're speaking to many of the converted, Michael, but this is what egoism means. The conviction that the purpose of life is the achievement of happiness. How malevolent can that be, Michael? How malevolent. It's morally. So, if egoism, the conviction that the purpose of life is the achievement of happiness is morally defective, then it must follow that a political economic system founded on egoism must be the same. And this is how people are able to conflate egoism, capitalism with something fallen and depraved. As long as self-interest is an object of suspicion, so will be free market capitalism. And this is so true. And
freaking men.
Yeah. And this strikes at the heart of everything that we talk about, Michael, because we don't talk about just economic facts or principles of economics. We talk about moral principles and how in alignment capitalism is with moral principles. We also don't separate morality from life. So we understand virtues and value pursuit are about living. It's a code of values to help you live and thrive in the world, not to die by, not to sacrifice others by, not to hurt yourself by, but to live and prosper. And capitalism is the only system that enables us to do this. The profit motive is indeed central to the market economy, which has been the only engine of mass production and consumption in history. Even its staunchest enemies have agreed. While acknowledging the social benefits of the profit motive, Adam Smith recognized that the butcher, baker, and brewer put in long hours to provide our dinner not because they love us, though they may like us, but because they wish to pursue their own self-interest. And monetary profit isn't the only benefit sought through productive work. A challenging long-term purpose enables us to exercise our rational faculties, set our value priorities, and live fully human lives. No one needs to apologize for that. Amen. This is the last paragraph. It appears that those of us who want to foster support for freedom and the free market will have to first build respect for the pursuit of self-interest. Rand said that throughout her career, but many libertarians shrank from the task, as he did at one time, apparently, believing that explaining economics and rights theory would be hard enough without trying to teach the an entire philosophy. Considering that America is now trapped in a Trump world, how has that worked out, libertarians? I love that.
I love it too. And let me just give a shout out to Sheldon Richman for his bravery, because believe me, he's going to get pushback from libertarians for saying that shit. My experience with Sheldon is he's eminently intellectually honest. And let me just give you an example. Do you remember the video that you sent me about, it was, what was it? Patriotic Dad or something. And he was talking about the history of Iran and the Shah. And his claim was basically that the CIA, there was no coup. You remember that video?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched it and I researched it and I found out, from my research, there was a lot of errors in it. Nevertheless, although that went against the historical narrative that libertarians tend to cling to, Sheldon shared that video and said everybody should watch this. And somebody asked him, and he said, "Listen, it's the truth that matters, not a particular ideology." And that is the approach that all of us should be taking. That it is the truth that matters. What is right is what matters. And I just wish that more people, I wish more people would take that approach.
You and me both, but instead they circle the wagons around their sacred cows. Michael, if you hold the truth as your ultimate value, you're going to have to slay your sacred cows. I know I had to. And I still continue to have to do that.
Of course,
we're finite. Our knowledge is finite. That means we're prone to error from time to time. That's why we have reason, we have logic to check those errors. And be prepared to slay those cows. But Michael, it doesn't hurt that bad to slay those cows. When
it shouldn't. It
shouldn't, but it does. People experience it as a death in a way because they hold the value, they identify with the value, and when that value goes away, there's an empty space there. And I think people feel a lot of anxiety about it because it hasn't been filled yet. But that's the only way you grow is by slaying those. And if you hold the truth as a value, it's a lot less stressful because you realize that you're actually moving in a progressive direction. You're actually progressing your soul and growing your knowledge, not shrinking it or staying stagnant.
Yes.
So Michael, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I was just going to say, go ahead.
You sent me an article. Do you want to get to the World Bank? Because
I do, because my purpose, let me just tell you. So my purpose in sending you this stuff and the tariff stuff is just to show what is going on here. That, we start off with a great pro-capitalist argument, and it talks about the moral base of capitalism being, egoism, self-interest, the pursuit of happiness. And then I wanted to send you some stuff to show what happens when that is not your base, when that is not the position from which you're coming.
Excellent, and you did. You had a couple of articles here that were distressing. I got to say, Michael, I'm not sure how I can deal with some of the information here. The World Bank used to champion markets. Now it's surrendering to state-led industrialization. Talk about that, Michael, because it talks about states having industrial policy and what that means. That's a frightening concept for me. For states having industrial policy. Right. It frightened me long before this article, but go ahead.
Right. Well, we see it right now, with some of the other stuff where the government decides what needs to be produced, maybe, for emergencies or national security or whatever. The state has industrial policy, and people know that the states don't do this stuff well. They have no business doing it. The World Bank, I haven't studied the World Bank, but according to this article, they used to know that. But now they're basically, instead of saying don't do it, they're giving advice on the best way to do it.
Yeah, with the caveat that it normally doesn't work out well. So they're acknowledging that state controls have lots of issues. One being, of course, the knowledge problem, right? There's no board of economics, even if they were the smartest men on the planet and the greatest businessmen on the planet, who could possibly encompass the knowledge of millions of people working in spontaneous coordination towards a goal. They can't do it. Now, Michael, some socialists think that AI is going to be the thing that will enable them to do this, but it won't be able to do it either.
So, yeah, and the reason prices contain information. We've talked about this before. Prices tell producers what needs to be produced, entrepreneurs where money should be invested, consumers where the best deal is. But, like I said earlier about the Attorney General in Connecticut doesn't want to let prices work, doesn't want to let prices send the information. He's concerned about this fiction in his head called gouging based on the very altruist morality that the first article was speaking against. It's the same thing with the toilet paper situation where you don't let prices go where they should go. And of course, we're going to get to, in a few minutes, I'm guessing, an example where Trump is doing the same.
That's very scary what he's planning on doing, Michael. We can get to it now if you want, because it's a perfect segue into this. Hold on.
So?
Or do you want to get into the tariffs, the 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals?
I want you to make the call. You have the info in front of you.
So,
you make the call, and we'll get to it.
We won't get into the data on Liberation Day and what exactly is happening in the manufacturing sector, which Trump is said he was going to make boom again. It's not really the case. It's not really what's going on. But Trump is, of course, as you guys know, uses tariffs as a form of leverage, a form of forcing companies and or countries to do his bidding. This is his method of deal making, Michael. It's sort of akin to either your brains or your signature will be on that contract. Make your decision. It's not really the way I think people in good faith negotiate with one another. But he is trying to put a 100% tariff on brand name pharmaceuticals, Michael. What would that do? Now, of course, there's a lot of edits that go with this. It's not exactly that. He's using the 100% tariff to compel them to onshore their production, to invest in America, to bring prices down. Go ahead.
Under, of course, the claim of an emergency, right? It's always an emergency. There's always some emergency with Trump. So he's going to tariff name brand pharmaceuticals, companies for medications that are not made in the United States. There are exceptions because of pre-existing, agreements with the UK, for instance. If they come here, it'll be, I think 20%. It's also worth noting that 90% of the medications people use, or upwards of 90%, are generic, so this doesn't cover them. But nevertheless, what he's ultimately doing, you're punishing success, right? If you come out with a new medication, but you don't make it where Trump wants you to make it, he's going to punish you. Of course, what that's going to do is not what he wants it to do. It's going to drive up the cost of medication. It's going to limit the medications that are on the market because some of them simply cannot, the companies maybe not be able to afford it. So you end up screwed. But the economics of it, to me, are less significant than Trump's willingness to punish people. And make no mistake, 100% tariff, a 20% tariff, whatever, it's punishment. You're punishing people. For what? For being creators, but not doing so the way that you want. It's, again, they owe something. If you're going to do business in America, it's not enough that you've created a great product. No. You have to do more. You owe. You have to give back, like we talked about earlier. It's all based on this bullshit that to succeed is somehow a sin.
Yeah, and Michael, he's able to get away with it because of the populist movement out there that has largely not dissimilar from the left populism. They hate corporations, they hate billionaires, and they think in some ways Trump is sticking it to them because to them, Michael, prices are arbitrary. The prices of these drugs being so high for people, and of course during the patent period of the drug, where the company's trying to recoup, its billion-dollar investment, it's 10 years of time spent trying to get this drug approved. People see the high price of that drug initially in comparison to the generic version, which is so much cheaper, as a ripoff. They see it as a grift. And Michael, I don't know that you can actually explain the economics of that to people. I mean, you can say, look, it costs $1 billion on average to put that drug on the
Well,
market.
the
10
question
years of
isn't
time.
whether the question isn't whether you can explain it. The question is whether they'll listen. So this morning, Subby tells me he was watching a video. It looked like an old Ben Shapiro debate with a young college liberal. And the young college liberal was talking about how it's so unfair that the businesses get to determine what wage they're going to pay you, and why do the workers get paid so little and the businesses make so much, and all the dumb stuff. So Ben Shapiro responded, and I don't really care for Ben Shapiro usually, but his response was good. And he talked about, look, these companies are taking the risks. They're investing the money. If things go sideways and, they lose their fortune, they're harmed far worse than the worker who can go get another job. And he went through a lot of things, about this stuff. And Subby said to me, so do you think this kid is going to be convinced? And I said, probably not. Because people dig in. It's like you mentioned before. They don't want to slay their cows. Stuff becomes like a religion for them, and they cling to it and adhere to it, and it doesn't make a difference what the truth is. That is not a good, epistemological approach to take.
But Michael, it's easier to blame the billionaire out there as the boogeyman. It's easy to blame the Jews and the conspiracy of the Jews than it is to take responsibility for your own life and say, well, I'm in the station that I'm in because of choices that I've made. That's not an appealing thing for people anymore, Michael. If it ever was. I mean, I think there was a time when America was about picking yourself up by your bootstraps, but now that's seen as not compassionate. If you tell somebody to get their shit together, you're seen as a not very compassionate person. When saying something like that could be the best thing that a person could hear. That another person could hear. It could snap them into reality where they understand that I got to be the captain of my destiny. And how do I do that? By looking at reality and honestly assessing it. But that's not what people seem to want to hear, Michael. It seems to be the dominant idea out there is that somebody else is pulling the strings. Somebody else is the puppet master. I'm the puppet. Oh my God, what can I do? Nothing. I'm a victim of circumstance, of my economic station, where I was brought up, the color of my skin. You name it, whatever excuse somebody could come up with for not, and I don't mean being successful, but not being successful, but I don't mean not being successful as in just monetary success. You can be relatively successful monetarily or not even that so monetarily, but still be spiritually happy and be content, know your place, be honest and have integrity and live a good life.
I want to share an anecdote. Because right now, I don't know if you probably know, but the audience probably knows about the birthright citizenship case that is right now before the Supreme Court. So a bunch of people are sharing a quote from Jacob Howard, who introduced the bill and the amendment in the Senate. He says that everybody born in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, shall be citizens, excluding, of course, aliens, foreigners, the children of ambassadors, etc. When you read it, it seems to me clear he's referring specifically to the children of foreigners. Of ambassadors, legal dignitaries, that sort of thing. Okay. Either way, it really doesn't matter, because what matters is in the text of the Constitution. In the text of the amendment. But either way, in addition to that, and Howard also said that he viewed the amendment as basically codifying already existing law, the existing natural rights, yada, yada, yada. There's also quotes from an exchange from a Senator Cowan and a Senator Conness, where Cowan says, so does this mean that children of the Chinese are going to be, and gypsies are going to be citizens? And the response was yes, they will be. Right? Now, also, I'll say this applies that those are just, a few senators. It's a discussion taking place. What matters is the text. But if you're going to quote one guy, look at the other quotes as well. So when Mike Lee posted that, look at that. Sheldon Richmond. Thank you very much, Sheldon. Sheldon says, where'd he go? It's not every day someone reads my work on YouTube. Thank both of you. No, Sheldon, sir, thank you,
sir.
And I shared it on both Facebook and X, and I hope everybody will read it because it's a great, great article.
Great article.
Thank you, Rob Lankenheath, $5 says thank you for this discussion. Very inspiring. Thank you. Okay,
Thanks, guys.
so like I said, it's the text that matters. The text of it says, people born here subject to the jurisdiction thereof shall be citizens. So I got into, I posted the quotes on Mike Lee's page because Mike Lee says, look at this quote. And I said, yeah, well, how about these? So somebody comes in and wants to argue with me. So I said, okay. I said, well, let's also look at the definition of what jurisdiction was. So I provided definitions of the word jurisdiction stemming from 1755 till 1860 or 1868, multiple definitions. I also provided quotes from James Madison where he discussed that the primary thing at the beginning of the country is if you are born here, you are a citizen. Why is that relevant? Well, because Jacob Howard, when he's talking about it, says he's going to, we're just codifying existing law. I also presented evidence that the concept of jus soli, meaning attached to the land, was the relevant doctrine, the common law doctrine applicable before the Civil War. Whereas jus sanguinis, which means, blood is the determining factor, is not. My dogs won't shut up. Hold on one second. They didn't listen.
No, man, there's a fire engine going off. They gotta howl.
Yeah. I also provided the relevant court case, Lynch v. Clark from 1844, that discussed the issue, all previous Civil War. But the person just doesn't care. It doesn't matter how much evidence I present. The person wants to believe what they want to believe, and that's it. And that is the nature of so many, people. Epistemologically, they just don't care about evidence.
Amen to that, and less so now, Michael, because the political atmosphere, Trump has changed the political atmosphere to such a degree that discourse has been lowered, and hey, buddy, the promotion of evidence. Look at that guy. Hello,
it's a girl.
Hey, baby girl, you're
Her
awful
name is
cute.
Tayo.
Kira Felix says something. Hey, buddy. Kira Felix says something I totally agree with. America is becoming European. Americans used to be skeptical about government. Now they want government to run their lives. Yeah, I've noticed that for a long time. It's been a formulation that I've made for a long time, that we're being Europeanized, Michael. There's so much about Europe that should make you uncomfortable as an American when you go there. When I'm walking through the streets of Paris and I see 8 or 9 guys dressed in camo with automatic weapons slung across their chest, berets on, strutting down the street like they own it, and that's the militarized police force in Paris because you can't legally own a gun there. I don't feel comfortable about it. I don't feel safe. I don't feel good. What makes me feel safe is being able to have a gun on my hip. That's what makes me feel safe, so I can take responsibility for my own life, not some random fatigue wearing beret wearing guy with an automatic weapon who may not be there at the time the shit goes down.
So it certainly didn't understand. As we were walking the streets of Boston together, you were strapped?
No, I wasn't strapped in Boston.
No,
not strapped. I couldn't legally carry a firearm in Boston.
Oh, that's so freaking stupid. A buddy of mine is licensed to carry, and he told me that we were in New York, and he said, no, I can't carry in New York. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Michael, there is a thing called the Second Amendment, and there are some
states. Oh, my God, you sounded like Trump just then. There's this thing called the Second Amendment, okay?
Well, he wouldn't know what it is, though.
No, he would not.
But, Michael, there are some states that are constitutional carry, right? So they let you carry because, it's a right provided in the Bill of Rights. It's a protected, self-defense is protected in the Constitution. That's what should be animating all the states, Michael, is constitutional carry. You carry a firearm because you have a right to defend yourself. And you know what? I don't think it would make the world a less safe place. It's certainly, there's no evidence to necessarily suggest that. Anyway, Michael, anti-capitalism. Now, is this gonna touch on that frickin' Jacobin article you sent me that I did not read?
We've just been discussing anti-capitalism, Mark.
But is it going to be?
Did you think that the World Bank?
No. I mean more specifically. I mean, I get that, but I mean,
no. I mean, it doesn't have to. I sent
because
it.
The article was about a socialist, somebody who gets elected, and he's a socialist, outright
well,
socialist.
He's running. He's running.
Now,
He's
folks, I
running
want to
New
preface
York.
this without having read the article. We already know there's an avowed communist in the executive office in New York. We know there's 250 Democratic socialists who won election across the United States of America, who are now in positions to legislate socialism to the rest of us. What? Mark was supposed to do an article about the Second Amendment. Wasn't Mark supposed to? Oh, was I? I don't remember. Well, thank you, Persephone, for reminding me that I'll get on that.
Oh, Kaya, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Great.
Thank you, dear. Hope your jiu-jitsu is going well. $4.99. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Also, for us pro-capitalists, Mark, I think you were supposed to make some videos as well. But let's not get picky on the stuff that Mark's supposed to do.
I'll get into that when I'm in Paris.
Especially this article that he didn't read either. But the Jacobin article is about a guy running for Senate.
Wait. Let's get into this. Why did I not read the Jacobin article?
Because
I'll tell you why.
Like it?
Because you have given me, and I know why you do it.
You sounded like the guy from The Godfather. Let me tell you why.
4 weeks, for months, I read Jacobin articles, and I tortured myself with them. Just because you sent them to me, so I'm like, I'm going to read this. This is the opposing perspective. I'm going to read it. But it just got too much for me, Michael. I can't take it anymore. I'm glad you have a stronger constitution than I.
Oh, boy. Here we go. That sounded like a self-pity thing to me. But listen, forget about Mark's self-pity. Everybody's posting X's. Do you see all this?
What does it mean?
Persephone said post X if you think Mark's full of it, basically.
What?
Everybody's posting X.
Fuck off.
But yeah, my only point was, look, that there's a guy that could win a Senate seat in Harlem that is an avowed socialist. That's the point, is that the anti-capitalism, like you said, we've already got it, in the governor of New York. You got another socialist here running. We've got socialists.
No, not governor, the mayor of New York.
The mayor, I'm sorry, yes, the mayor of New York.
Although Hochul isn't far off. I mean, let's face it, she's a pragmatist.
Okay, so, it's very much, I'm going to get the guy's name, Conrad Blackburn, socialist to represent in Albany is his name. That's the name of the article. And, it's just the same old thing. He grew up poor. He didn't have anything. He was alienated from other people. He's a black radical. He likes Harlem because that's where other black radicals, Malcolm X, for instance, are from.
Well, so Thomas Sowell was from there too.
I'm guessing he doesn't like Dr. Sowell. But the main point I just wanted to get at with this stuff is that you have, on the right, we have the President of the United States who wants to tariff, has already tariffed and wants to tariff, and put an executive order to tariff medications. We have the World Bank who is, advising on how to do, industrial policy for governments. And on the left, we've got socialists running in socialist ascendant. We are not in a good place as far as pro-capitalism. And this, to me, goes back to the original article today. It's because we do not have a proper ethic. We do not have an ethic of rational egoism, rational self-interest. So anybody who is successful is looked at with side eye, and many of the people who are successful feel guilty about it. That's a problem.
How unfortunate. And also, Michael, it fosters a culture of envy too. People see.
Oh, we're going to be discussing envy tomorrow, by the way.
Which we're going to be discussing in Self-Made Soul. So I think those fit together like a puzzle piece. With respect to Hochul, she's begging for Republicans to come back. She needs them for taxes. She's not a socialist. No, I don't think she's a socialist. She's certainly a pragmatist and a grifter. And yes, she would like that tax base to come back, but good luck. Although Michael, a friend of mine who's a pretty big actor, he just moved to fucking New York.
Did he?
Yeah, he's got a place in Manhattan and on Long Island. Now, and I know a couple of very wealthy actors who have moved to New York. my friend Jensen Eccles moved to New York as well. Now they're doing it because of the schools, because there's apparently private schooling there is some of the top schools in the country, and they're going there for their kids basically. So I guess they're okay with eating whatever tax burden is there in order for their kids to thrive. But still, Michael, New York wouldn't be my go-to. It wouldn't be my go-to.
I go to New York quite often. Maybe you can arrange for me to have a meetup with these guys. I can go hang out with them. But either way, no pressure. What was I going to say now? So I'd like to get into the Iran stuff just a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there was an article in the Jerusalem Post that said basically that only half of Iran's capabilities have been destroyed, meaning they still have half of their capabilities. Now, their source was CNN, who has other sources. So as I'm reading that, I'm thinking, okay, I'm skeptical of CNN. Of course, the administration has made all kinds of claims that basically the war's won. They're destroyed, all that stuff. So, then I read a really also, by the way, the U.S. snubbed the meeting with European powers, I guess, to open the Straits of Hormuz. But then I read a great article, and it's been posted. Persephone will post it. And I'll share it, of course. It's from the National Review, a conservative publication. And this is what he says, and this is how I feel so many times in these situations. It says, I've been circumspect when it comes to commentary on the Iran war, even as it necessarily forms the backdrop to my other work over the last month and a half. The main reason for this is that I have little confidence in the reporting from all sides. The mainstream media, partisans in favor, those opposed, foreigners, and administration sources alike. Never before, in such wildly momentous times, have I felt less certainty about where to turn for accurate information, nor been more alert to how many people wish to spin me in one direction or another. And then he says, the Trump administration's remarkable failure to publicly engage with the country on the Iran war has made the task even more difficult. And that all, I thought was just, it really put it wonderfully, which is part of the reason, by the way, that it's good to have Congress declare war, because then information comes out, then we're able to better decide. But it's very, very true, that it's difficult to know. Like when I debated, the guy, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, Capella, Jeffrey Capella, I referenced a Reuters article, and he said, I don't trust Reuters. And it's like, okay, I get that, but from where do we get information? I mean, unless we have access directly to the intelligence, right? We have to rely on somebody to tell us. Mm-hmm. And even if we had access to it, we don't know if we can trust the people who gathered it. And when you're in a situation where you cannot trust your information systems, it makes things very, very difficult. What are your thoughts?
I agree 100%. And we're in that state now where the tribes have divided in part along information lines where they don't trust the other tribe to give them the proper information. Everybody's trying to spin it to favor their own narrative. So, Michael, I mean, fortunately for us, there's a massive marketplace of ideas out there. And you can, if you look, find people who are reliable and who will give you the best information and the best takes on that information. You just have to look for it. So it's you got to hunt. You got to take responsibility for the information that you ingest, but you can find people who are quite reliable. Or you can also do what you do, Michael, which is you take a cross section of all kinds of information, and you inquire, with respect to some of the AI platforms that you use.
But this is true. But here's the problem, right? I do that because this is the business I'm in. But your average person, I can't imagine most people have the time to get up, cross-section multiple sources, research this, research that. It's a lot to ask is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not even saying people shouldn't do it, but it's a lot to ask and it's a lot to expect that people are going to do that.
Sure.
But yet these people, and this is where I'll say, it pisses me off. because they're never in doubt. They're out there, they put their positions out there without doing due diligence, and then they vote also, which is problematic.
That's the scariest thing, because that's when they put their doubts on us. They put their problems on us, their false conclusion. Yes. I want to say something about the Iran war, though, Michael. I think we've made unprecedented gains over there, and it's very clear our military is just a phenomenal machine. But the war is not won until this regime is done, and until Iran, the regime that represents Iran, surrenders. It's simply not done. I don't care that Donald Trump claims it is. We know he's a primacy of consciousness guy, and it's whatever is in his mind takes precedence over whatever is going on in reality. But if you haven't completely incapacitated them to the point where they say, I give, then all you're doing is kicking the problem down the road. And you've even emboldened some powers, because you've shown the world that you're not willing to follow through with this. And Michael, even though it's in their interest to do this, the Arab Emirates, the Arab states know this. They understand that Iran has to be defeated. Israel understands Iran has to be defeated. And on the sidelines watching this whole thing, Russia and China understand that that has to be the case as well. And they're watching us in a number of ways. They're not only seeing that we can easily defeat their air defense systems, which we've been able to subvert very easily, but they're also seeing, how quickly, how much time, how much we can endure, munitions drains, right? They understand that our supply chains are weak with respect to that. That area, Michael, has been completely monopolized, so that there's a bottleneck of production. There's no way we could keep up with the amount of munitions that we're actually using over there. They understand this kind of stuff. They see this as a potential strategic weakness. So we're really in a sort of, there's only a one-win situation, Michael. The one-win situation is regime change, and that's it. There could be no other solution, regardless of what Trump says. Do you agree with this?
I think you're probably right. It seems right to me. I don't think that's going to happen. So, that's a problem. But yeah, I think by and large you're correct. And, that's the state that we're in this country. But we're also in the... Akira Felix says Americans want the government to take care of them. That's why both parties are moving more and more toward authoritarianism. I agree with that.
That's true, because we're in a spoils system democracy, Akira. We're not in a representative republic anymore. Spoils system democracy is you build a constituency based on the favors that you can give out. That constituency wins, then you hold the levers of power and you make your friends and dependents richer at the expense of everybody else. The American Capitalist Party would love to eliminate spoils system democracy and return us to a representative republic that is constrained by the Constitution, folks. Yes. People say we think that's scripture. We don't think it's scripture. We think it reflects real power dynamics and what you do about power.
You like to throw that in whenever you can. All right, so the question that Mark asked yesterday was, do you prefer psychological horror or slasher films? And ZMT42 says psychological horror is best, like Mulholland Drive. I don't see how Mulholland Drive is a psychological horror, but...
Yeah, it is. That's a good description.
That's not a good description.
It's actually a good description.
Race Jacobson says I can do either psychological or slasher horror. It really depends on the individual story. I like the psychological nature of Don't Breathe, but I also like the weird dream stuff in Freddy Krueger movies. Jenna Kleem says she likes true crime documentaries and anything that stars, anything suspenseful starring Anthony Hopkins. Teresa Shanti says sometimes I enjoy horror. It has to be psychological for the main part, but with some kind of physical resolution by the end. And she references The Shining. Jenna Kleem wants to know if Deliverance is a horror movie. Well, it was for Ned Beatty's character. And then Robert Nacer says he does not like horror movies. And Nicole Hingle says that she definitely likes the psychological horrors. So, Mark, give the capitalist start of the day, and then I will ask the question for today.
I just want to say, Akira Felix says, good description of Mulholland Drive, not a good movie. Akira, I'm on your page. I saw it at a press screening, and I walked out of the press screening feeling like I had been roofied and that something bad had happened to me while I was roofied.
How is that a horror?
How is Mulholland Drive a horror movie?
Yeah.
It's a Hollywood nightmare. It's about a girl who gets obsessed with somebody else and tries to take over her life and
It's
becomes.
not about
And
anything. It doesn't make
did
any
you see
goddamn
the little
sense.
people? The little people. You know, you don't have people this big unless it's a horror movie. Come on, I
What?
don't. I don't look.
Gulliver's Travels? Is
It
Gulliver's
started
Travels
out
a horror movie?
sometimes. It started out as a straight plot, Michael, and David Lynch was quite capable of writing straight films occasionally and directing straight films. You should see The Elephant Man. Did you see The Elephant Man?
Love The Elephant Man. That's
That's
not a
David
horror
Lynch.
either.
But that's David Lynch. It's not a horror movie, but it's a straight plot. And the original Mulholland Drive was a straight plot. And I was the assassin that was chasing her through the movie or through the show. But it was too expensive for ABC to do, and it was critiqued as the best new TV series you'll never see, because at the time it cost $7 million to do it, the pilot, which was too expensive. Nowadays, I mean, that's a song, Michael. So anyway, yeah, we've been talking about capitalism, folks. Capitalism it's an economic system, but it's also a moral system that is founded on individual rights and rational egoism, which means your life is your own. You have an absolute right to it, and an absolute right to pursue rational values, because your interest is what makes your life happen, and consequently what makes life better for other people as well. We hold rational self-interest as an ideal. Capitalism does as well. And if you like and subscribe to this channel, share it across social media platforms. We are hoping to get other people on the rational egoism train with us, so that we can start reforming this country a little bit, get off sacrificial ethics and collectivism, which is quite honestly killing us, and get to rational egoism and reasoned self-interest and the liberty that accompanies it, because we understand that's where the prosperity is, folks. All right, Michael, take us out with your thing.
I will tell you one thing first. According to ChatGPT, Mulholland Drive is a psychological thriller and a mystery. It's also commonly described as neo-noir, surrealist, and art house experimental. You will notice the lack of the word horror in there. Okay.
I often put psychological thriller and horror together.
Okay, that's
and
your
in Mulholland
mistake.
Drive, no, in Mulholland Drive, there are elements of horror that it should be written in there. It's okay. ChatGPT can be wrong, Michael.
No, but no, not on this one. Okay. The question is, what can you do to spread the idea of rational egoism? What can you do to spread the idea of rational egoism? Please go to YouTube and answer the question. It helps us a lot. All right, Mark, take us out. We gave him 2 extra minutes, almost 3 it's going to be, and that's good.
Thank you very much, folks, for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel before you leave. And we're going to see you on Monday, folks. You have a whole weekend to check your what did I do wrong?
You didn't do anything. It's just somebody said, I don't want to talk about it. It's in this chat.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. So, yeah, remember to like and subscribe, folks. And you have a whole weekend to check your premises. That's much longer than the 23 hours we normally give you. So please do that, will you? Check your premises. Peace.